Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is Laura McEgan, founder of the popular children's yoga certification school, Divine Light Yoga. Laura has over 18 years of experience working with children and young people in both educational and therapeutic settings. Hi, Laura.
Hi. Good to be here.
Caught you off guard there. So my brief little story about Laura and I before we begin this conversation is that when COVID hit the globe beyond Asia in 2020, I was actually scheduled to head to Sayulita to take Laura's course in person. And we were actually connected by another student of yours, Meredith. I think Meredith, when she was the one who referred me to you. Yes. So shout out to Meredith. I still remember vividly that, during this time, this is 2020, we're now in 2022. But you and I had kind of had this conversation back and forth about flying from Asia to Mexico. And at the time you were like, it's fine. We're still open. People are flying in for the course. And I was like, it's not so fine in Asia right now. I don't know if it's a good idea for me to fly out. So what I guess what happened was we actually ended up all going online. Right. So you actually also didn't have it in person. And so I took the course online, which is my first online course I took, actually. Before, I guess that was the period where everyone was trying to shuffle and start doing Zoom classes and online courses. And there was this whole boom. And maybe we can even go into that conversation a little bit, in terms of transitioning from in person to online. But anyway, so I took your class, and then fast forward to 2022, where we are chatting now, where I'm in Taipei and you're sitting in Dubai. Much has changed. Born and raised in England, Laura has since spent her life on the road from Asia to Mexico to now Dubai. And I'm excited for Laura to share with us how her passion and determination allowed for her to build the business and life she wanted for herself. And of course, it didn't always come easy. And now with the pandemic, definitely also not easy, as we were chatting before we pressed record here. So Laura, let me stop here and I'll let you dive right in with your journey and your story you're going to share with us today.
Well, thank you for a great introduction there, Jen. So my story, my background really is in education, and that is what led me to start living in Hong Kong almost 16 years ago. So I moved over to work with a nonprofit children's charity, and then loved it, fell in love with Asia, and ended up staying there for 10 years, moving around, working with different schools. And yoga was always such a huge part. I wouldn't say a huge part of my life, but it was always something that I would go back to whenever I was having difficult times, and had been from a very young age. And then it just started to become more of an important part of my life, kind of like my therapy, I guess, really. And so then eventually I just merged the two, my passion of education, my passion of yoga, and I started to introduce it into my regular classroom with children. Saw the huge benefits on both children and myself. And then I took the leap into becoming a full-time children's yoga teacher. And then not that long afterwards, I then developed Divine Light Yoga and the teacher training curriculum. And that led me all over the place.
So can I just rewind a little bit? I just wanted to ask, because everyone's start to their yoga journey is different, right? So could you share with us a little bit like how you were first introduced to yoga as a discipline, and how what was it like for you when you first was exposed to yoga, and how you decided to kind of dive deeper into it? And, there's so many different types of lineages and practices, um, and how did you kind of decide to shift towards focusing on children's yoga? Granted, your background is on early childhood education, so it's, obviously was a good match, but was it more like you did prefer to teach kids versus teaching adults?
I honestly love teaching all different age groups, really, really from babies, my parent baby classes, all the way up to, seniors. Absolutely love it. And I think as a teacher, you get so much from each age group, each individual that you work with, definitely. I originally got into yoga. Really, it was with my grandmother, my granny. So I was 15, and she was doing yoga at actually it was at a local gym. It was. I mean, I'm from a really small town, so yoga was very new, very different, and kind of only for the elderly. It was just like stretching, flexibility, movement for the elderly. That's how I was introduced to yoga. And so I would go with my granny, and I mean, she still practices now. She's 82 and she still practices, every day. She's amazing, like big inspiration for me, definitely. And I didn't really get into it. I thought it was a little bit weird. I was like, what is this? I was 15 years old. What is this weird breathing we're doing? Why are we just lying on the floor, just, finding peace? I don't even understand what that means. And so that was my introduction to yoga. And I would say then through my teenage years and definitely my early 20s, yoga was just something that I would come in and out of. So I would be addicted to it for 3 months and go
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like lose my path and lose my passion for it and my connection with it. And it would be a whole year before I would go again. So it was
Right.
very like in and out of yoga and
Hmm.
meditation. And then when I moved to Dubai the first time, which was 10 years ago, honestly, there wasn't really much here to do then. There was just shopping, which is not my thing, and not really much else. And then I got into yoga. I found this amazing yoga teacher with this beautiful yoga garden, and I just fell in love with yoga, every aspect of yoga. And I was introduced to so many different types of yoga and meditation and gong baths and sound healing and yoga nidra. And it just really opened my eyes to the whole world of what yoga actually is
Hmm.
and the lifestyle of it.
Oh, that's so funny. I think a lot of us have similar storylines of like how we were first introduced to it. And especially when you start at a younger age and you're like, I don't understand what this is. Why are we doing stretching? Right? You're like, and I can stretch, like I can do all these stretches, but you don't understand how to integrate all the different concepts together. And then, like you
Yeah.
said, you kind of go in and out, and it's like, oh yeah, yeah, I do yoga, and then you like forget it for the rest of the year, and you do it again, periodically. So okay, so now we have that foundation, and let's go into that pivoting point where you decided to leave, your 9 to 5 teaching job to dive into creating divine light. And I'm guessing that was a very pivotal moment for you too, right? Very impactful and very, in some ways, could be challenging, right? In terms of how do you make that choice? Like, how do you leave that comfort of having a monthly paycheck to say, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go full on into this and brand yourself and kind of figure out how to really put yourself out there, right? As the person that people think of and go, oh, children's yoga, right? Divine light. You should look for Laura McEgan. She's the person to seek.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, I went from teaching in an international school, so teaching as a full-time school teacher, to then full-time yoga teaching, so working with a studio in Hong Kong, teaching adults, prenatal, within schools, spent 2 years running around the whole city from 6 a.m. in the morning until I didn't get home until 11 p.m. midnight, teaching every type of class and age group, and I was just experimenting and taking on every opportunity. And I did that for 2 years, and then I set up Divine Light Yoga. So it definitely, I mean, at the time, it didn't feel like a big deal. I mean, I really didn't have a lot of, I had zero knowledge business wise, absolutely zero knowledge. I was a teacher. That's all I'd ever done. I didn't know what marketing was. I had no idea how to set up a website. I didn't know any of that. But I did it all from scratch by myself because I also didn't really have um, a lot of money. So I had like zero financial backup, zero financial support. And, working as a yoga teacher in a very expensive city like Hong Kong, you don't have much savings, if any savings at all. Which, anyone who's a yoga teacher, I'm sure they're nodding their head right now because it can be challenging to, live off a yoga teacher salary. Not to deter anyone because it is an amazing job, but it can be a challenge sometimes. But yeah, when I look back on it now, I think, wow, I was really brave and really bold to just not only jump into setting up my own business with zero knowledge, but I actually moved to Thailand at the same time. And I guess I just had such big goals and a real mission on what I wanted to achieve with regards to how I wanted to see the world for children, how I wanted to see the change for children of our world. That just kind of that was my focus, and so nothing seemed like a big deal at the time. And then obviously, the more I got into it, I was like, wow, there is so much that I need to know and learn and do about business and marketing and promotion and just so many things that I can't even list right now. But I think at the time, if you have a mission that you're really passionate about and focused on, everything else just doesn't seem like a big deal. It's like that, it's all going to come together. I don't even need to think about it. Maybe it's because I was 29, I don't know, but because I was a bit, I don't know, but I think it's the mission that was like really driving me.
Yeah. And I think it really shows through your work that you've done. Like if you go on your website, if you watch your tutorials and how you shaped the courses and stuff, it really and I think this is where your teaching background comes in. Your content is very strong, right? Like in terms of how you shape the classes and like you said, your end goal of how you see the world for children, right? Which I guess you can reiterate here. What was, when you think back a decade ago, what was that vision that you, and I'm sure it's still there today, but what is that vision that you had for kids in the world we live in today?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was asking myself that the other day. Obviously, new year, getting refocused on what is my vision, what is my mission, because you have to keep that at the forefront of your mind. Otherwise, it's really easy to get lost and feel deflated and want to kind of give up with the work that you're doing. And yeah, it's very much that I really want children all over the world, no matter what their background or their experiences are, to have access to all of these therapeutic tools of yoga, breathwork, meditation, mental health strategies, mindset techniques, so that they can just integrate them naturally into their day-to-day lives, and so that they become teenagers and adults that are confident and compassionate. And when you look at children, if you look at children, they find little pockets of joy in everything. They really do. Everything. They're looking at like a spider on the floor and it's so much joy. Or they're looking at the waves in the ocean that they see every day, but it's still so much joy and wonder and magic. And I just really would like children to then become teenagers and young people and adults that continue to keep hold of that joy without, thinking about all these challenges and overanalyzing things and losing their confidence and allowing other people to take away their power and their confidence. And I think we can actually achieve that if we start with children. And I know that we get that joy and that confidence, and that kind of magic does come through yoga, mindfulness, mindset activities.
I got so excited just listening to you talk about your vision. But I also wanted to ask you, for you personally though, what about this whole process made you see that? Like, was it a personal experience? Was it just because of your years of teaching early childhood that you realized that it's as simple as, teaching like the balloon breath? I'm just trying to remember from your course. But just simple as those little things that when you apply it even in the classroom or as a parent at home with your young ones, that it does instill within them that they know, like, like you said, when they become an adolescent, it's like, I'm stressed out. All right, like, I'm just gonna take a few deep inhales and exhales, and that really will help me calm down, or like, don't react to things, but like, take some time to process it before. So I'm just curious, for you personally, like, how come it's so like, you're so passionate about it? I'm just curious if there was some trigger point, some example, something that really, was like a boom, like you're like, this is it. It works.
Yeah, I think really there's two major reasons. It is because I see myself having to work so hard as an adult on a daily basis to be aware, to integrate these strategies. I mean, a lot of things now has become natural, right? You rewire your brain, you rewire your nervous system, but yeah, I see myself and other adults having to work really, really hard for just basic things like self-respect or kindness towards yourself or non-judgmental behavior towards other people. And I really believe that if we had all of these tools and techniques integrated from a young age, our brains wouldn't even have to, our brains just wouldn't think like that. So we wouldn't have to actively be trying to be non-judgmental. We just would not be judgmental. So I think
Mm.
there's that side. And then obviously having worked in classrooms and with families, within yoga, with yoga and breath work. And I see how quickly it affects a child. I mean, literally one humming bee breath, one Brahmari breath can make a child go from being really anxious, a state of at feeling out of control and overwhelmed, to them feeling in control of their own bodies and their own behavior, which is so empowering for them. It is such a powerful but such a simple technique. And then hearing from parents, who come in and say, oh, my child taught me humming bee breath at home and we did it together, and he was great, but I felt amazing. And just hearing that feedback with
Mm.
something, it's just something so simple, that these are really like life skills that we all need and should all be exposed to, no matter where you are in the world. I really feel like it's as basic a skill as being able to read. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. So okay, I just then wanted to ask you, because when you kind of brushed upon this earlier when you said, when you first decided to create Divine Light, you really went in with this passion. You were so excited that, like you said earlier, that none of those other business tactics ever crossed your mind, because you were just so focused on, like, I'm going to teach these kids. I'm going to go into classrooms and, spread this loving awareness to all. And at what, I guess, during this process, was there any point of like hiccups or points of like where you were like, I don't know if I'm on the right track, like, doubting yourself, or, even during the pandemic, like having to switch your retreat situations or your courses and then go online and kind of go, well, if I can't physically work with kids, how do I continue this?
Yeah, I think there are hiccups and self-doubts always. Yeah, and that's why I think if I was taught from the age of 2 resilience techniques and these life skills, maybe I would have less self-doubt. But I know in myself the knowledge that I have and the passion that I have to share, and that my trainings and my workshops, I know that they are really valuable. I know that. And I know that I provide a really positive experience for everyone that joins any of my trainings, workshops, whatever, free resources. So I never doubt myself in that way with like the knowledge that I share and how I can share it and connect with people. But there's definite times of doubt of, am I even reaching the right people? Am I helping the right people? Are people even listening? Am I the only one that even cares about this? Because it really feels like nobody else even knows what children's yoga is or what's the benefits. So there's definitely frustrations with things like that, and doubts as well. And then I would say major hiccups would definitely be the pandemic obviously was a big shift for everybody, no matter where you were in the world or what your work is. But I think I feel like I managed it very well under the circumstances, given that we were supposed to start the teacher training in Mexico on like the 23rd of March. And by the 25th of March, I'd said, right, we're doing it all online. I worked very quickly to, it was almost like in fight or flight mode. It actually was fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
definitely. It
Yeah.
was a case of, I have 10 people who are supposed to be flying to Mexico to do this teacher training that they've all been looking forward to for a whole year. They want to share with children in their family, in their community, in the world. I can't just say, oh, let's just do it next time. Like they want to do it now and I want to share with them now. So what am I going to do to provide that experience for them? And online was the only option. And of course, at the time, we thought it was a temporary option. Oh, we'll do it for 8 weeks. And if you still want to come to Mexico in September, you can come anyway. And I think that's why a lot of you actually signed up to the online training, was because you thought, well, I can get the certification and the knowledge now, but I can also still go to Mexico when all of this like
Yep.
COVID stuff is over in 4 months' time. How naive we all were. But yeah, I mean, that was a massive shift. And I think we all then accepted that online learning was going to be a big part of our lives. And obviously, the online world was the only way that we could connect with people for a very long time. And I still think that although we're all really craving this in-person connection, and perhaps that's how 2022 is going to be. But I do think that the online trainings and online learning is a really great way. If you've got a good teacher who knows how to make it a positive experience, I think it is a great way for us to learn, but also to reach people that we wouldn't ordinarily as teachers be able to reach because they're on the other side of the world, or just some things preventing them from being able to, for you to meet in person.
Right.
So
I mean, you and I haven't yet met in person either.
I know, and there's so many of my students that I haven't met, but it doesn't feel like I haven't met them in
Yeah.
person.
We have to thank technology for that. There's always a positive and negative to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I think about like all the children that if they hadn't have had online learning, they would have had zero connection because of whatever circumstances were going on at home, zero connection with people. Or, 2 years of basically not learning and not growing and feeling by themselves. So, as much as we might have a love hate relationship with technology, it has provided so much for us during this pandemic, and it will continue to be part of with the way in which we connect with people.
Yeah. It's our reality. I mean,
Yeah.
Web3 and metaverse is coming, right? So I do want to ask also, in terms of implementing, yoga and breath work for children, so much of it also comes from guidance of institution, like educational institution, but also from the home, right? Families. So, from your experience, what would you say is important in allowing kids that exposure and for them to be able to also practice it within the home? Right. So, kind of like what you said earlier with the example of how a student taught their mom the hummingbird breath, and kind of the mom going, whoa, like that was very impactful for me. I didn't realize that. Because I think sometimes in households, if the parents are not necessarily encouraging of it or know how to implement it with their kids, it can be kind of not helpful, I guess, right? So I guess what are some tips? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask in terms of how you would encourage um, educational institutions to implement this, and also families at home.
I think that people just need to try it for themselves. There's definitely some resistance in the educational sector, and in certain communities of particular religions, and of parents who are resistant to yoga or the breath work or meditation, and feelings of, well, my child won't be quiet and meditate. And I think that you just need to try it for yourselves. It literally takes 10 seconds. It can be 10 seconds of a breathing activity that's really simple, not too weird, nothing too strange. And then if you, as the adult, feel the effects of that, but you really have to, spend those 10 seconds not being judgmental. So not 10 seconds of sitting there like, oh, I don't even want to do this breath work. Just 10 seconds of, I'm going to try this and see how it feels. And it will work. And no matter what breathing technique you're doing, you will feel the effects, even just 2 or 3 breaths. And then that feeling, it's just like nothing else, because it's true calmness that your body probably hasn't felt for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And so that kind of soothing of the nervous system that you don't normally get, it's so elevating and feels very blissful that you do just want to go and share it with your
Mm,
children. Because why would you not want to share that with children and teenagers? And
right.
it's just so rapid. It only takes a few seconds. So my advice to all adults would just be, try it out for yourself. You don't have to do a 60-minute yoga class, literally just 10 seconds. Notice how you feel, and then ask yourself, do I want my child to feel like this? Do I want the children in my
Mm,
class, my children in our school to feel like this? And then if you do, then learn some more and go and share it. It's really simple.
right. Right. Okay, so we're coming close to time, but I do have a few questions before we wrap up here. So the first one is, I guess I wanted to ask, where do you see, going back to what you said earlier about like it's a new year, so kind of, your new vision, your new goals and plans for this year. And I know, and we talked about this earlier too, before we started recording, it's kind of like, how do you even plan during the pandemic, because we're in our third year now. So, but I guess being very versatile, right, in terms of how you structure things, and again, keeping that foundation of what your main goal is. So that's one. And then my last one is, usually I ask my guests, to share with us, the audience who are listening to this particular episode, if they resonate with your story. I guess for this one, I would say, when someone is trying to transition into leaving their 9 to 5 and kind of going on that entrepreneur route, what would you suggest to them to take that leap of faith? What advice would you give them whenever you're kind of like hit bottom, when you're stuck, or when you're kind of, like you said earlier, like, is anyone understanding what I'm trying to preach here? Am I only talking to myself? Am I targeting the right audience? Am I getting the right people to come and take my courses to learn from me so they can continue to spread this wonderful practice to more children around the world? When you doubt yourself, what keeps you motivated, and keeps you grounded in saying, I know what I'm doing, and I know that this is important, and I want to spread it, and, keep you going? So those two questions.
So I would say for anyone who's thinking about taking the leap of any kind, right? Whether it's work related or moving countries or getting married, whatever, some big life transition that you're considering. I mean, I am a very impulsive person, so I'm very much like, let's just see what happens. But I also use what's the worst case scenario and what's the best case scenario. And the worst case scenario is never really that bad. And the best case scenario is the most amazing thing that you can possibly imagine. And it can even be better than that, because our brains are just not able to actually imagine the best case scenario. And so I think sometimes when you sit down and ask yourself, what's the best scenario? What's the worst case, the worst case scenario, best case scenario? The worst case scenario just is never bad enough for you to stay in the place where you're at. So that's just a little thing that I would use. I would definitely encourage people to use. But I would also say just go for it, because you're never going to regret the things that you don't try, but you will definitely regret the things that you don't even bother trying. Definitely. And then, what was your other question? I forgot this.
I know, it's like all these are so thought-provoking. You're like, wait, I need to think about it. So my last one was about like advice or things that keep you grounded when you kind of hit that wall and you're kind of doubting yourself, or you feel stuck and you kind of feel like, I feel very alone in this whole thing. I'm not sure if, I'm going to get the right students to come take my classes. When you kind of get stuck and you're just going like, I don't know. Is it just me? you know?
Yeah, I think in those situations, I mean, firstly, I always turn to gratitude for everything. So whenever I'm feeling any kind of emotion that feels uncomfortable or what I perceive to be negative, I will always go to gratitude. So you can always find something to be grateful for, really. There's so many things. Taking it really basic, I'm grateful I have clean water that comes out of my tap. I'm grateful that I have a bed, and actually it's a really comfortable bed. So the basics of gratitude always really help me if I'm feeling really down about something, or unsure about something, or feeling difficult emotions. And then if I'm doubting, am I reaching the right people? Do people even care about this? I think it's just, again, staying focused on what is your mission. So not really what is your goal, but what is it that you want the world? How do you want to see the world changing? So, what is your particular thing that you really want to change in the world? And regardless of whether anyone else cares or not, you do care. So stay focused on that. And even if you are fighting this battle by yourself, which you never ever are, but even if it feels like that, just staying focused on, well, how am I as an individual going to make this change, even if it's just to help one other person? because I think sometimes it can get really overwhelming. I've
Mhm.
definitely had this in the past and spoken to other people in the same area of children's yoga. We really take on, it feels like we're responsible for every single child on the planet, and it feels so heavy, and you just can't carry that around, and that is not motivating you. It's just weighing you down.
Yeah.
So even just thinking about one individual that you are helping with whatever it is that your work is, and just staying focused on that rather than allowing literally the weight of the world or the weight of the problems to pull you down.
Wow. Okay. I feel much more calm about, doing my own thing too now. No. Yeah, I think those are very key important reminders, definitely. Yeah. Do you have any books or things you refer to sometimes that you think are very helpful for you?
I am a complete book addict, and I am constantly learning and listening to so many podcasts. So yeah, I'm a big one for just trying to draw in other people's energy and inspiration and knowledge. But particular books, gosh, no, I could probably write a whole list. I think one thing that I do really recommend for everybody, no matter where you are, who you are in life, to read is Nonviolent Communication. So it's a
Okay.
book. You can also do workshops on it and courses. Compassionate Communication, it's sometimes called. But I do recommend that to a lot of people because, but for me, it was absolutely life-changing about how I perceive the world and perceive myself, and how I communicate with myself and other people. And I think, honestly, everything to me just comes down to gratitude and compassion for yourself and other people.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna put all that you said, like the resources on the bottom of the episode, so people can find you online. They can reach out and then also look into this book that you referred,
Thank you.
and sign up for any of your courses as well. That's up and coming. But thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you so much for being such a wonderful host and for being so patient with me, because we've been trying to do this for like 6 months or something.
That is true. And well, I mean, and to be fair, you did catch COVID twice in these 6 months. But I'm so glad you have recovered. So, again, who knows what's on the other end of the future? We just have
Exactly.
to be grateful.
I think so. Yes. Be grateful for what you can. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Jen.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.